Hoi allemaal en fijn dat jullie weer kijken naar deze aflevering met een verhaal uit ons museum. Nou, deze aflevering gaan we het hebben over het toestel waar wij nu in zitten, namelijk de zogenaamde Horsa Glider. En ik noem hem zelf altijd de origineelste replica die er bestaat.
Ja, daarover later meer. Dit is inderdaad een Airspeed ES-51 Horsa, een Brits zweefvliegtuig uit de Tweede Wereldoorlog. En ook aan dit toestel zit een bijzonder persoonlijk verhaal. Jullie zien een stukje naast Janneke al twee namen op de romp van het toestel gekalkt. Van piloot Victor Miller en zijn co-piloot Tom Hollingsworth. En dat is het verhaal waar we het over gaan hebben. Nou, Victor Miller heeft ook een boek geschreven waarin hij vertelt wat hij allemaal heeft meegemaakt tijdens die Tweede Wereldoorlog. Dat staat hier naast mij, dat is Nothing is Impossible. De Airspeed Horsa was een Brits zweefvliegtuig, vrijwel volledig gebouwd van hout. De bemanning bestond uit 2 piloten. Het vliegtuig was niet bewapend. Helaas zijn uit de oorlog geen complete originele Horsa's overgebleven. De Horsa hier in het museum is een replica. Hij is gebouwd door medewerkers van de Royal Air Force. Daarbij zijn wel flink wat originele onderdelen gebruikt. Horsa's werden tijdens de Tweede Wereldoorlog bij verschillende operaties ingezet. De grootste hiervan was operatie Market Garden in september 1944. Toen werden meer dan 600 Horsa's door andere vliegtuigen, zoals de C-47, richting Arnhem gesleept. De landing van zo'n zweefvliegtuig verliep langzaam, waardoor de Horsa's een makkelijk doelwit voor Duitse troepen vormden. Toch werden maar opmerkelijk weinig Horsa's uit de lucht geschoten. De, ondanks haar afmetingen zeer wendbare Horsa, werd uiteindelijk een door piloten erg geliefd toestel. De Horsa is niet bepaald een luxe toestel. Het bestaat grotendeels uit hout overspannen met zeildoek. Goedkoop en licht, wat wel fijn is bij een zweefvliegtuig. En als grote voordeel dat dure metalen worden uitgespaard, die natuurlijk belangrijk waren voor de Engelse oorlogsinspanning. Toestellen werden grotendeels gebouwd door houtbewerkingsbedrijven en meubelstudio's en de losse onderdelen werden later pas in elkaar gezet. De Horsa was een wegwerptoestel, bedoeld om 1 keer te gebruiken en daarna op het slagveld achter te blijven. En als je de film A Bridge Too Far gezien hebt, dan heb je dit toestel eigenlijk voorbij zien komen. Want in een bepaalde scène zie je heel kort de romp van een Horsa met dezelfde markeringen als dit toestel. In de film is dat gedaan als eerbetoon aan Sergeant Miller, die als adviseur betrokken was bij het script en zelf ook gevlogen heeft in dit toestel tijdens operatie Market Garden en later tijdens operatie Varsity.
Oh wow. God, I'm quite emotional actually. Ooh. God. All his might. I've seen bits of horses before at the museums in England, but this is remarkable. Oh God. Right.
How's it for you to be sitting here?
Oh, it's a really emotional moment. I feel very proud, and I can't say enough thanks to Richard and the museum for what they've done. It's utterly amazing what they've put together here. It's so realistic. It's made me think how difficult it was, how vulnerable the pilots must have been at the front in this sort of Perspex cockpit. Is one thing, but the view must have been incredible when they were sort of flying and coming into land. But it's made me appreciate a bit more what my father went through, flying into Arnhem on that fateful day, on that Sunday morning, thinking everything was going to run smoothly. It might be a bit of a walkover, which it didn't turn out to be. So my father was deeply affected by the Battle of Arnhem.
Yeah.
Even to the day he died, he sort of had odd nightmares, and I think he was proud of what he did, but traumatised at the same time of the effect of the battle and what went on and what he had to suffer. Along with all his colleagues, and my dad never felt he was a hero. He felt he was just one of his with his mates doing a job at that moment in time. So in hindsight, they were all heroes. But I think to them, they were just with their friends, with their colleagues and mates, and that's what they were doing at that moment in time. So yeah, I feel very proud of what my father accomplished and what was part of. And of course, finding that picture of my mother is rather wonderful. And on the back of it, it says, "Darling, keep this next to your heart," which I think is a lovely sentiment.
Yeah,
my mum had for him when he took this with him on the flight as a sort of a good luck charm.
Yeah.
I said, well, and it worked for him, which is rather nice. So yeah, I'm a very proud person, proud son. So and I think what the museum have done is utterly amazing. Sort of bringing it a bit of personal touch. I think is what I think with the story, my father's story, of what he went through and what they achieved at Arnhem. So yeah, very good indeed. So so my dad, at the end of the days, he was very proud of what he did, accomplished as a pilot, and although he went on 3 operations, Sicily, Arnhem and the Rhine crossing, it was Arnhem, the Battle of Arnhem, that stood out in his memory for all the obvious reasons of the battle. Was so intense over those 9 days that they were there, and went to his grave always thinking of Arnhem and was proud of what he did.
Yeah. Beautiful words.
Yeah, and then I suppose the other thing I'd say, he kept a diary all through the war because it helped him sort of to go through trauma. And when Cornelius Ryan was writing the book A Bridge Too Far, through the Glider Pilot Regiment Association, my dad passed on his sort of diary manuscript to Cornelius Ryan, and when the book was published, my dad was invited up to the Dutch embassy in London and presented to the Dutch ambassador and Cornelius Ryan, and Cornelius Ryan handed over a signed copy of the book saying, "Thank you for your contributions, Victor," which is a lovely thing, which again made my dad feel very proud of of what he'd accomplished over the years. And then in 1990 brought my father back, and he walked around, and he found it very emotional coming back to the scene of the battle. But it was somehow helped him with all the emotions of what people go through, which we now know is a post-traumatic stress disorder. But of course it wasn't in those days, it was sort of ignored. Yes. My dad's co-pilot, Tom Hollingsworth, they were very good friends. When Tom went back on leave to visit his parents, my father used to go with him to meet Tom's parents, and his brother in particular, Peter, who I have met a few years ago, a lovely man. So they went to this operation full of sort of a typical soldier's bravery, went on, and they've been good friends. They flew, did lots and lots of training over the months together, and became a real tight sort of a unit, just the two of them. And when they landed at Arnhem, everything seemed to be going smoothly on that first day. And then obviously on the second day, on the Monday, they were told to go through, and they were sent round by the Hartenstein Hotel.
Yes.
And Tom, my dad and some friends, they all dug trenches near the tennis courts. And during the coming days, with the terrible shelling that the Germans were doing from these mortars, which my dad said were absolutely terrifying, he said you'd bury yourself at the bottom of the trench and shake with fear. It was just awful. And after a day or so, this sort of continuous warfare, Tom suffered a sort of nervous trauma from all this shelling, and had shock. And my dad, he was taken into the basement of the Hartenstein Hotel,
yes,
where all the medical casualties were going, and he was asked if he'd help tend with the wounded, to do the basic bits and pieces, looking after people. So Tom stayed in that basement for the rest of the battle. And when my dad was late one afternoon of the final day, all the glider pilots were brought together and told that they were going to have to act as guides for the withdrawal. They'd have white tape laid down, and all the glider pilots would stand at certain positions down there in the night and guide all the retreating soldiers back. So that's what my father obviously went to do. But his big regret to the day he passed away was that he didn't go and try and find his friend Tom. It just wasn't possible with what was going on. And so my dad obviously retreated, got across the Rhine to safety, but Tom was left behind with all the other wounded and other prisoners of war, and taken prisoner of war by the Germans. And he eventually ended up in a German prisoner of war camp. And in about October 1944, at the prison camp where Tom was, there was an air raid by the Americans nearby, and all the prisoners that were outside were told to get back into their huts. And from what I read, the story was that Tom didn't move quick enough. Yeah. So one of the German guards shot him in the leg, and unfortunately hit him in his thigh and severed his femoral artery, and Tom just bled to death. And my father obviously found out in months and months later, maybe, of what had happened, and he felt totally guilty that he hadn't tried to make the effort to go and get his best friend and get him back, and hopefully get him back across the river. So to my father's dying day, he never forgot that moment, and it's sort of something he took to his grave as a thing he should have done. He couldn't have done anything because orders were orders, and you do as we were told. But that haunted him to the day he died, which is just a very sad part of warfare and things that go on.
Ja, dat was weer een van de verhalen uit ons museum. Bedankt voor het kijken.
Wil jij deze en alle andere verhalen uit onze collectie zelf beleven? Koop dan snel je tickets.
Of steun ons museum en word vriend. Of check de merchandise in onze webshop.
Ja, alle links in de beschrijving. En vergeet niet te liken en subscriben.
Tot de volgende. Houdoe!